On this episode of Bite Sized, we are watching and discussing the 26th scene of the movie Twilight. For those of you watching along at home, that is from 33:15 to 34 minutes and 53 seconds. And now, on to the episode. Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good wherever you are, whatever time it is where you are. Thank you for listening to yet another episode of Bite Sized. I am always, as your host, Ben Abear. If this is your very first time listening to the show, here's what's going on. I am watching the movie Twilight, one scene at a time with a different guest every week. Maybe they've seen it before, maybe they haven't. Regardless, I send them anywhere from 30 seconds to 3 minutes of movie. Then we talk about it with very little extra context. Joining me today is a musician and an improviser in the Chicago area, Bryce Halladay.
Hello,
welcome
g'day.
to Bite Sized.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, how's it going? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty great.
How are you enjoying this incredible Chicago weather? It seems like every day is 50 degrees different from the last.
It has been a wild ride the last couple of days. I don't want to date this too much, but
go for it.
I think the night before. Well, no, we are recording this the day after Tom Skilling retired.
Oh yeah,
and 2 days ago there was like a huge tornado.
Legendary Chicago weatherman Tom Skilling, and then there was a hailstorm. Yeah,
I am obviously newer to the Chicago area, so I wasn't really familiar with Tom Skilling, but I was like, a tornado's happening, so you switch on the actual real-time news, and I was there going, wait, did you just tell me that this man is going to retire? Is 1 day away from retirement?
I know, it was going on with the
Is
bank.
he going to die in the tornado somehow?
Also, not being from the Chicago area, I'm a little amused at how seriously they take storms up here, because I'm from Houston,
Certainly.
which definitely gets its fair share of rain, more so than Chicago does. Like, bad storms are a much more regular occurrence. And so, like, a couple nights ago, there were, like, tornado warnings that preempted the news and Wheel of Fortune and everything. For, like, an hour and a half, there was just, like, the same three people talking about tornado warnings and things, and hail and things like that. I was just like, this is not a big deal.
And that's been just about every experience for me of watching the weather here, going, all right, I know Illinois is a big place, and maybe just because it's not crazy where I am, it's not crazy everywhere, but yeah.
And every time it comes up, it's rare. Maybe once a year, Chicago will get like a tornado watch, which is one level below a tornado warning. And people will be like, we got to shut down, everyone get inside, stay safe. And I always want to be like, guys, come on. It's not a hurricane.
Our response to this warning was to watch the film Twister as the storm was freaking in, which was pretty fun.
Have you seen the trailer for Twisters?
I have,
the sequel.
Yeah.
I am unreasonably excited about that. If any movie where you make a sequel just by putting an S at the end of the original title is okay in my book.
I think they should have called it Twisters, but with two I's in the middle, so it's like a 2 for Roman numeral 2.
Yeah, and make them into tornadoes? Yeah. Okay, now we're getting
somewhere.
Yeah.
But like, and so that you can ultimately have like a 7N kind of thing going on where it's twist 5 or...
Well, yeah, by the time you hit Twister 5, then it would be a V in the middle, and that wouldn't really work. I guess 4 wouldn't. Twivsters. Twivsters doesn't work as well. Twilight could have done the same.
Yeah.
It could have been Twilight, but then you've got Twivlight or Twilived alternately. Enough about weather and weather-related movies, though. Let's talk about the thing we're ostensibly here to talk about. We're talking about the movie Twilight, specifically one scene from it. Bryce, I'm going to start this interview the way I start every interview on the show, which is by asking you, Bryce Halladay, what is your history with the Twilight franchise?
Can't say it's been like a close and intimate history with it. It's kind of like the Harry Potter. Like, it came out when I was... In high school, and
it was
all the rage, and I think I maybe read the first book.
Okay,
I've read like most of the Harry Potters, but neither of them are the center of my interests and passions. So,
have you seen the movies then?
I have seen the movies.
Okay, recently,
although I don't think I've seen the third one as well.
Okay,
so I definitely saw the first one. Definitely remember people playing baseball really quickly.
That's in the
Muse.
first one.
That's that's pretty iconic.
It really is. Every time I talk about this show, people ask about people, and like if
how
I talk
far away are you from? What's that song?
Hold on, from Supermassive Black Hole.
Supermassive Black Hole. How far away are we from Supermassive
We're
Black
currently
Hole?
recording episode 26. And Supermassive Black Hole, we're going to talk about that in episode 54.
Okay.
So we are approximately.
I feel like that should be an all-star episode where people return and all get to do.
Our mutual friend and performer Jack Shalinsky claimed that one very
Damn you, Jack.
before anyone else, and so I said. I said, you can have it, but I also want you on earlier because I don't want to make you wait a year and a half to get on the show. And I'm glad I did. For listeners, sharp-eared listeners may have picked up that when I introduced you, you said, "G'day."
I did say
you
g'day.
are not. Maybe people have noticed just by your accent or by that, you're not from America.
Yes, I am from not America.
No.
No, I've moved here from Sydney, Australia.
Which geographically is about as far from America as you can get.
Indeed, yeah. But, I mean, Twilight was kind of pretty huge in Australia as well.
That was my next question. Was Twilight a big deal in Australia?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Huge deal. I remember seeing many posters of Twilight in people's high school bedrooms through
what
through
year
the years.
about would this have been?
Well, I guess, did the movie come out in 2007?
The movie came out in
or something?
2008.
2008. Okay,
The
great.
book,
Well,
I think the first book came out around 2005. I guess
Yeah,
I'm trying to
so
judge if
2008
there
was-
was like a delayed reaction.
No, I think it was all happening. 2008 was the year that I graduated high school. And
Okay.
I definitely remember the last couple of years of high school, Twilight just being gigantic. I had a high school girlfriend who was massively into both Twilight and Harry Potter, and she was kind of my intro into the world of fan fiction that's written about both of those.
Yeah, we've talked about
Those
that a lot.
universes.
I guess now that I think about it, there's probably not. You don't need to change things too much, if at all, really. I'm sure you don't need to translate it. I'm sure Twilight, you can just send it straight to Australia and it's the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like you'd have to send, translate everything into French and hire actors to dub the movies or something. It's just they didn't give.
No, exactly.
They didn't do an Australian dub of the film.
No.
That would be
Which has always
wonderful,
been a thing that I've found strange about when they make British shows into American versions of things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why do you need to do that? It's already in English.
Well, we need to make sure it was ours first.
Yeah. And I mean, I kind of get it with The Office because, and particularly British TV, there's, they make 6 of everything and then that's it. And Americans' thirst for television is much, much greater than that.
Yeah.
And like you did and by you, I mean Ben A. Bear needs to take personal responsibility for the terrible American remake of Kath and Kim, which completely just missed the whole soul of what that show was about.
I don't think I've even heard of this.
Kath and Kim was an absolutely brilliant sitcom.
Australian
sitcom. Came out like late 2000s. Yeah, I don't know what to say about it. It was about this mother and daughter, Kath and Kim, who were what I guess we would... I don't know if this term is so great these days, but they're kind of a bogan sort of...
okay, I assure you most of my listeners have never heard that, or are not familiar if that term has any problematic connotations.
Well, bogan's kind of like our version of redneck, and I don't know whether like redneck people like to be called redneck or not in the same way as bogan people may or may not like to be called.
I may not be a redneck myself, but as someone with family in North Alabama, you're fine. Say it.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely something very iconically Australian about it and the humor and everything. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Selma Blair was in the US version, and I flicked on the pilot and I couldn't get through it. It was just like the whole... It's not just about a mother and daughter and you just go, okay, well, we'll take them from Australia and put them in California. Like that's not the quintessential ingredient.
I'm sure there are more, but the only Australia to US sort of show that we imported that comes to my mind right now, I think was The Slap Australian.
Oh, yes, I've heard of that, but I'm not familiar.
The Slap, I'm going to look this up because it was... The Slap was this TV show, this drama TV show about a guy who's at like a kid's birthday party and one of the kids is messing around and this guy slaps the child. And it's just sort of about the drama and the fallout around that. It is an adaptation of the Australian series of the same name. It aired for a few months on NBC. It was a mini-series. The Australian series, 8 episodes. Okay, so not a lot of meat on that bone, as I thought. But like, I remember when this came out, commercials for it were everywhere, and just immediately, the immediate American reaction was like, this is hilarious. I think that like the next day, SNL had a recreation of the guy just slapping every kid at the party. And I don't know that we've ever taken anything from Australia again in terms of TV
the only
shows
thing that's
anyway.
been that I've been very pleased about recently is Love on the Spectrum has been
interesting.
That was originally a Australian series, a reality show about people on the autism spectrum dating.
Okay.
And it's been very faithfully recreated by Netflix as a US version. And by faithfully, I mean it has the exact same like executive producer
Same
and director
premise and
stuff,
everything.
Yeah, it's both. I think both series are a fantastic watch.
Yeah.
I highly recommend that to everyone.
Do you
Love on the
think
Spectrum.
if they did try to adapt Twilight to be something Australian, do you think it would even work? Well, because I mean, let's just start out with the premise of the show, the movie. It takes place in Forks, Washington.
Yeah,
which was specifically chosen because of how little sunlight there is. And Australia, to my knowledge, is a very sunny country / continent in general.
you could do kind of like this new series of True Detective Night Country, where if you go to Tasmania, Tasmania is quite close towards the South Pole, and so it doesn't get like fully dark for a stretch of period, but it definitely, there would be a period where it gets particularly dark, for like where there's very long darkness in the middle of winter there.
I forgot about Tasmania.
Yeah, you could do that, and I think being somewhere kind of Launceston or something, kind of on on the sort of coast of Tasmania, you could do that. But I don't know if there'd be much meat in just kind of 1-to-1 doing vampires and werewolves. I'd like to see like sort of yowies and bunyips or something standing in.
That was kind of my next question. Is there what are the Australian monsters?
The big Australian folklore monster is the bunyip.
What is a
which
bunyip?
Is kind of, I mean, I suppose it's a little bit like,
just based on the name, I'm assuming it's a person that turns into a rabbit.
No, not quite. I guess it's kind of like a yeti.
Okay.
It's kind of a mystical, dangerous creature that is, in the bush and is as I believe it does have its origins in indigenous culture, but it was definitely something that was told to Australian children to kind of scare them off of the idea. By Australia, I meant by white European Australian children, to scare them off of just wandering into the bush, I guess.
Now, did you need to manufacture a reason to keep children from wandering into the bush? Because what every American knows about Australia is that it's already full of animals that will kill you that actually exist.
It is a surprisingly common theme in Australian literature, culture, the idea of young people wandering off into the bush, maybe to never return or to have some kind of life-altering experience before they come back.
That's the basic premise of a lot of movies that I've seen that take place in Australia, like Picnic at Hanging Rock. I don't know if you've seen, or Kangaroo Jack, for example. Yeah. The two great Australian movies.
There's Tomorrow When the War Began. I think they made that a film a couple of years ago. And that was a great young adult book series about a bunch of kids who go off camping for like a few days, and while they go camping, Australia is invaded and like an occupation begins, and it's this like series of books about a bunch of teenagers improvising explosives and stuff and like doing guerrilla warfare against this completely unnamed military force that has invaded Australia.
I think I've decided this is no longer a Twilight podcast, and this is just a Let's Talk About Australia podcast.
Let's see how much Australian culture I can rattle off the top of my brain.
Another recurring theme I've seen in movies about Australia is that in the event of a nuclear war, Australia will be fine.
Yeah. Because totally fine.
Europe and North America and Asia will destroy each other, but Australia is not important enough to nuke, and it's not close enough to a nukeable target, so you'll be okay.
Yeah,
like
totally will.
Total Recall and some movie from the 60s or something that I watched, the basic premise is that Earth descended into war, nukes ravaged the world, but Australia's cool.
Yeah. It's kind of the opposite of the premise of all the Mad Max films.
If you think so, I guess. But then we don't see any other parts of the world.
That's true. Maybe Mad Max is as good as it gets in that world.
Wow. Okay. Now I'm just thinking about almost every movie I've seen that takes place in Australia, and the recurring theme is, it's fine down there.
Yeah. They're doing fine.
Yeah.
They're wearing spikes.
Yeah.
Their cars are working. They're racing around the desert.
They got it bad enough already. Yeah. Okay.
What do you want to say about this clip?
It took me a shocking... Sorry. Last thing, and then I swear we're talking about a clip. When you said they're wearing spikes... I just assumed spikes was some Australian slang for cleats or something. I don't know. But no, you meant like literal spikes.
I mean, like, like shoulder gear. I don't know. If I think of Mad Max, I think of somebody who's got like spikes on their arm.
And that's on me for thinking that Australians only speak in Australian slang. Okay, enough. Let's talk about Twilight. It's convenient that we were talking for a while there about Australian folklore before I so wildly derailed us, because that's basically what this entire scene is. Bella and Jacob walking down the beach.
What did your friends mean about, the Cullens don't come here?
You caught that, huh? I'm not really supposed to say anything about it.
Hey, I can keep a secret.
Really, it's just like an old scary story.
Well, I want to know.
Okay, did you know Quileutes are supposedly descended from wolves?
What? Like wolves?
Yeah.
Like real wolves?
Well, that's the legend of our tribe.
Okay. So what's the story about the Cullens?
Well, they're supposedly descended from this, like, enemy clan. My great-grandfather, the chief, found them hunting on our land. But they claimed to be something different, so we made a treaty with them. If they promised to stay off Quileute lands, then we wouldn't expose what they really were to the palefaces.
I mean, before we dive into too many things, has much been discussed about the color grading of this film? Because that's the very first thing that
In what way,
jumps
Bryce?
out to me. It just kind of weirdly makes me feel. As soon as I open the clip that you sent me,
Yeah.
it weirdly makes me feel ill.
And why is that? What color specifically do you think it looks
it's
like?
because I know they've intentionally done it so that Edward's face is just
Yeah.
super white.
Uh-huh.
But
You see my hand doing something.
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
I-
This
is
tells
it-
me you haven't listened to the
is
show.
it the green or something?
Oh, you're so close, Brycey.
I don't know what to
If
say.
you had to
It just
describe
makes me
this
feel-
movie in one color, what would that color be?
Oh.
It's not green.
Oh, I guess blue.
Hey,
Hey.
there we go. That's the Bluebell, Bryce Halladay.
I've noticed that it's very blue.
To answer your question, yes, much has been discussed about the color grading of this
Okay,
film,
excellent.
and we're gonna keep talking about it because it is ever present. Yeah, this scene's blue as hell.
Yeah.
This whole movie is blue
And
as hell.
it's sort of weird because like they've done it for Edward and the vampires, but it affects Kristen Stewart
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. So she just looks sick the whole film.
Yes, it is a very interesting choice that they stopped doing in the later movies, and I think that's sad because it does give this movie instant visual recognition.
Totally,
like you see
yeah.
you could see a frame.
I can't think of the only other film that comes to mind that does that is The Matrix. It's the only
Right.
one where you just see a frame of it and go, "Oh yes, that's from the Matrix series."
Right, and like it gets more boring and toned down as the series goes on. This scene is no doubt susceptible to the blueness.
And we also, we cut from the blue to just like all the flashbacks, little mini sequences there, all this kind of
Smoky
sepias,
and orange.
yeah.
Well, yeah, it's in the past, so it has to be sepia. tone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because colors were only invented in the last 30, 40
Obviously.
years.
Yeah, and if they'd gone back any further, it would have been black and white.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
before that at all, they wouldn't have any footage. It would just say no footage found.
Yeah.
They're talking a lot about family lore and legends. Does your family have any legends?
Uh,
Other than the bunyips, of course.
No, not specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how far we want to go down this rabbit hole, but I sure like the word.
Simultaneously excited and nervous.
Look, there was a time when the word cultural appropriation got chucked around, maybe a little too often.
Yeah.
But oh boy, howdy, does this clip have some pretty egregious appropriation of Native American culture.
Ben Oxshire, I trust your judgment in leaving this in or otherwise. Bryce, continue.
So yeah, I just was just trying to look up this tribe's
Oh, the Quileute.
Quileute?
Quileute. Yes.
And I did not have to go far to find a specific website on the Burke Museum, which is like a museum somewhere
Yeah.
outside of Seattle, talking about how displeased they are that people have been rolling. Like, I assume the wave of this has long since crashed, but since it was a pretty old website, I seem to be looking at. But just like ignorant tourists coming through to talk to Native Americans about how they're all werewolves. And
One day I'm going to devote like a whole episode to this specifically, to the sort of representation of Native Americans in Twilight, which I think a general consensus is that it's not great. But today's not that episode. Until
Sure.
then, listener, if you want to learn more about the actual Quileute people, go to mthg.org.
also head to the Burke Museum.
Yeah, also do that. But like great-great-grandpappy Halladay, there's no stories about him being a horse thief or anything.
No, not
Descended-
to my knowledge.
Okay.
No, it's like alcoholism, and then it just fades into whatever gray comes before alcoholism.
Let's see. We're going through this flashback, this story that he's telling. And
I loved the line. You caught that, did you?
What did your friends mean about, the Cullens don't come here?
You caught that, huh?
That
You caught that thing.
You caught that piece of exposition that we are really just elbowing straight into the audience's face. You caught that, did you?
Yeah, you caught that thing that someone said directly to you in the last scene. Oh, good. During this flashback, there is we get to see the Cullens as they looked. Presumably when they first met the Quileute tribes, I'm going to guess sometime around the 1920s.
Yeah.
And they are dressed in some costumes that we unfortunately never see again.
Yeah.
But I wish we did.
I wish it's worth the audience taking a look at this clip.
It really is, just for this. And you asked me at one point, I feel like you have a lot to say about this because you did at one point ask me.
I have, at 58 seconds into your clip, there is a shot of the 4 vampires.
Yeah.
Standing over.
Just for reference, I've got the
thank goodness.
The image pulled up here. You asked me who this was on the right, right? I believe that's Rosalie. Or maybe the mom, Esme. I don't know. She looks blonde.
Great. We have. I kind of don't give a crap about the rest of the people on screen right now. It's Rosalie
from right to
slash
left.
Esme.
I think we've got. I think Rosalie. I believe that's Dr. Cullen. And then I think Emmett and Edward. Yeah. But you want to talk about
They're
Rosalie.
all pretty blurry, except for Rosalie, who just is rocking this incredible look of. We got fedora on top. We got the blonde hair poking out. We got a ruff of, what would you call that?
A lace.
Some
sort
cravat.
Of cravat, I think is the word I was about to use.
Out. The rest of it is just kind of the standard sort of suit that you would expect someone to wear in the 1920s.
Right.
But there's something about the way that she is standing that is very alert and kind of gave me a Bob Fosse kind of vibe. And I'm just waiting for her to kind of start going...
no, you're 100% correct.
I got steamed heat.
This is like... The vampires, whenever their scary vampire poses, do have a very musical theater quality about them. And there is definitely something about the way she like rises up from the deer that does look like she's like in a production of Moulin Rouge or something.
Everybody else is just kind of, everybody else is in a scene where I've just been caught eating this deer and I'm turning around kind of casually.
Right.
Whereas Rosalie's very much like places.
Right. And they're all, just sort of wearing boring suits. I think Dr. Cullen has his pants tucked into some like riding boots.
Yeah, some jodhpurs.
Like. Some jodhpurs, yeah. Some flat caps in there.
That did not grab my attention nearly so much as the ruff and the fedora.
No,
really,
it draws the eye.
It
really does.
So that's my main note. I just want to make sure we talked about that.
No, and that's what I basically had that same reaction where that's interesting. I don't really know what else to say about it though, other than, hey man, that's some weird clothes they're wearing. Let's see. They're walking down the beach, back to real life, back to the year 2008. They're walking down the beach. And we end this scene on kind of a weird note. There's a scream.
There is a scream.
And a guy is chasing a girl. I think it's 2 characters we've seen before. I didn't really pay close enough attention to tell. Yeah.
I just kind of thought it was something happening in the background. But I wanted to ask you, what do you think the direction was that was given to these 2 background actors?
No, so the context to this scene, and I know we don't like to talk about context too much here. What do you think it was? Before I go into this, I want to know yours, because you clearly don't know, just based on this.
No, I know what it is. That's why I was asking.
Oh, did you look it up or something?
No, I just have I've taken what I see on the screen.
Yeah,
I've worked backwards.
I want to hear what you think it is, and I'll tell you if you're right or wrong.
Okay, well, so the director,
Catherine Hardwicke
wants to have like a scream happen just to like
jump scare.
Jump scare. But we're still in the early part of the movie where it's kind of it's adding to the foreboding, but nothing dangerous is actually happening.
Yeah.
And so she has asked these actors, can you just be like a couple horsing around on the beach?
Yeah.
And I don't even know if the scream actually would have happened on set. It kind of sounds like it was added afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they just moved here.
Or just moved back.
But they're horsing around and the girl screams.
Yeah.
But the horsing around that they're doing is that the guy just seems to have found a piece of rope somewhere.
That's what I was...
And he's tied a knot in one end and is just kind of waving it at the girl as in like, maybe this is a snake.
That's exactly what and you're basically correct, yes. That those are like 2 of her friends who are also hanging out at the beach. And and I think that is true that they want to give this... they want you to think that this could be a horror movie.
Yeah, totally.
Even though we for sure know that it's not.
No, we know the rating of the movie.
Right. And based on not, from our seat 16 years after this movie came out, but also if you saw this movie for the first time, I don't think anyone would think that this was a genuine horror, but it tries to veer into horror territory sometimes, like right about now. And the way they are reacting is like he is chasing her with a snake.
Yeah.
And I think this is the same guy that in an earlier scene in a greenhouse basically did the same thing, but with like an earthworm on the end of a stick.
Bella, look. It's a worm. It's a worm.
But it seems like they were trying to do that, but did not have a snake.
Right.
Couldn't come up with a fake snake. And so he just has
So this is a visually thematic thing in the movie.
This is not without precedent.
Okay,
I guess I would say.
I was just coming into it cold being
and
like,
you kind of nailed it, if I'm being
what
honest.
They've just gone, ooh, snake! Snake!
Yeah, I don't know.
And I can cast myself back to like being a teenager and kind of flirting with girls and thinking the only way I can do that is to like try and scare them a little
some
bit.
reaction.
But I just think I could do a little better than a piece of rope I found and put a knot in.
Yeah, that's clearly like 15 feet long.
Yeah.
And thin.
Yeah.
And not like a snake at all.
Well, he's got like a knot in one hand and then just another bit of the rope in the other, and he's just running along the beach.
Is it like gross and covered in mud? Is she worried about getting?
Kind of.
I don't know. Couldn't tell
beach
you.
Rope.
It's fortunate that this only exists for like 7-8 seconds of movie because it does not hold up under scrutiny, you might say. All right, let's start to get to the end of the interview portion of this show. That is where I ask you, if you had to give this scene a name, what would it be? And this is also going to be the name of the episode, so make it good.
Oh, Beachsnake.
Beachsnake. We came up with it right away. Beachsnake, all one word?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Because it's at the beach and we think there's a snake. What more do you need to know?
Or naughty beach snake? I don't know.
I like
I probably
Beach
got it
Snake.
in one.
Beach Snake feels like a Sci-Fi Channel original movie I watched in 2005.
I want that rope, though, to have a sequel of its own that's kind of like that. Have you seen that rubber movie that's about the tire?
Oh, about a tire?
That's chasing people around?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want that.
I'm sure that
piece of rope with a knot in it.
How did it get there? Well,
yeah,
who left it
Who
there?
gave it the knot?
Were they coming? It seems like a perfectly good rope. Why would you just leave that there?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's rich. It's rich with detail that we just don't have time to get into. Bryce Halladay.
Yo.
If people like the sound of your voice, the cut of your jib, they want to learn more about you, perhaps on social media, or see you perform live comedy somewhere, what can they do? Where can they go?
By far, the best way to keep up with what I am doing
Yeah.
is to go to brycehalladay.com and sign up for the mailing list.
Okay.
And I will send you an email once every 15 to 20 years with something fun that I cooked up. Otherwise, you can follow me on Instagram, Bryce.Halladay. If you're in the Chicago area, I am doing a solo show at Davenport's Piano Bar March 29.
Yeah.
But you can also head to youtube.com/Bryce Halladay. And you'll find a video that I posted there that was my submission to this year's Tiny Desk contest.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's Bryce with a Y, Halladay
Yes.
with no less than 3
Just like
A's.
Dallas Howard.
Sure. Or the way, this is a true story that's probably going to get cut out. But I'm traditionally very bad with remembering names. But when we first met, I remembered your name immediately because I don't know why this is my first thought. When you told me your name was Bryce Halladay, I thought, oh, like Bryce Harper and Roy Halladay, two of the greatest players in Philadelphia Phillies hit franchise history.
Oh, that's what I should have.
And for some reason, that worked for me. And now I remember Bryce Halladay as in Bryce Harper and Roy Halladay. Same spelling and everything.
Oh, I wish I'd.
We can talk more about that.
There are certain individuals I should use that mnemonic for.
For a small subset of Americans, that will work very well, like Bryce Harper and Roy Halladay. If you're ever in Philadelphia, that'll play really well.
I recently tried to get someone to remember my name, being like, it's like Doc Halladay. And then they finished the show by thanking Doc Halladay. I'm like, no, that's not my actual name.
Yeah. If you want to follow the show on social media, maybe Instagram or TikTok, you can do so at bitesizedpod_. You can follow me personally at benabear.com on Instagram. You can see me in Riff, Chicago's music improv party, at Second City in Chicago in March and April, and maybe longer if we do well enough. Who knows? Maybe Bryce will be there too. If you want to get in touch with the show, send an email to myfavoritetwilightpodcast at gmail.com. If I like it, I may even read it on the air. The story behind that, I tried to put together an email address that involved some bite-size or bite-sized pod. They were all taken, so I got mad and made it a complete sentence.
Here's a fun fact.
Yes.
10 years ago,
Oh?
I think, I started making a little podcast myself. It was called Bite-Sized Bryce.
What?
And it was like 6 minutes episodes of me just like doing weird little things.
We've
I don't know if it's still on the internet anywhere. You are listening to Bite-Sized Bryce. I will leave you bringing back in my little loops here. Thank you for listening. All of the time. All of the time.
We've been recording for 34 and a half minutes now. This is the first time you bring that up.
I'm sorry.
All right. Well, go find Bite-Sized Bryce and subscribe to that too. Subscribe, review,
It
tell
will
a
not be
friend.
a continuing podcast.
But I'm sure there's a rich archive for you to go to. Speaking of rich archives, tell a friend about this show. Tell them to listen to all the back episodes. If you want to introduce someone to the show, I did like a best of. That's just like a selection of clips from the first 15 episodes. I think it's a great way to get people introduced to the general idea of the show. That's it. I've said too much about how to listen to a podcast. You already know how to do that. I'm going to wrap this up. That is it. That is all we have for today on this episode of the Bite Size Podcast. As we always say at the end of every episode,
Yum, 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 Twilight.
yum, 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 Twilight. See you next time.
Maybe this is a snake.
You caught that, huh?